if somebody lent me $50, I don't have to go and say, when you're giving me that back. They're going to give it in return somehow, whether it's by giving the $50 or by sharing something that's worth it. And that's a natural way of being in our culture. You know, we're not greedy in that sense of, you know, we're going to step on everybody to get where we want to go.
Black Magic Woman podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on. We also acknowledge traditional owners of the land where you, the listener or viewer, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to our elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was Aboriginal land and always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bales.
Hey you mob, welcome back to another episode of the Black Magic Woman podcast. I am here on the beautiful lands of the Wurundjeri peoples on the Kulin Nations. And I'm pretty sure the Woiwurrung as well are part of this mob here, aka beautiful Melbourne, and it's pretty cold right now, let me tell you. I've been privileged enough to be able to travel around the country and attend different kind of professional development opportunities or leadership conferences or summits. Mainly where there's mob, I see an opportunity to then bring Clint, my deadly producer, and smash out a few episodes. So today I've got a beautiful auntie that I've had the pleasure of yarning with, having lunch with, and some of our work has crossed over, but more so aunt's connected to my elders and has been connected to a lot of my family from before I was even thought of. So it's an absolute privilege to have you on the podcast. Can you share with my listeners and also our viewers on YouTube your name, your mob, and a little bit about where you grew up?
Okay, so my name is Tjanara Goreng Goreng. My mob is Wakka Wakka Wulli Wulli clan, so Central Queensland. I live in Canberra. I'm a grandmother and a mother. Where I came from, I was born out in Longreach, which is Western Queensland, grew up there. Was a champion swimmer as a child, loved music, loved sport, went away to boarding school for high school and then off to Teachers College in Brisbane and eventually to Canberra to the public service in the 80s, or late 70s, early 80s, when, you know, we had all of those leaders that were really the politicians that just got up and ran with it. Charlie Perkins, all those early people back then. So I kind of worked with them, learnt a lot with them. Tiger was a great friend, and Auntie Maureen Watson, your grandma, was my mother used to always say the two of them grew up on the same riverbank in Theodore.
There you go,
when they were little. Yeah, when they were little, they knew each other out there in Theodore because my mum's country is just a bit south of there, a bit south and a bit east.
Yeah.
So they met out there, they grew up together, and I remember when Auntie Maureen was unwell, Mum came down to Brisbane to see her. So, you know, we have that long connection, of course, big connection with Tiger. I always felt like he was my big brother. And the politics, you know, that's always been my thing. Having lived and worked in Canberra and was married to a journalist, still, you know, husband. And so, yeah, my life's been like that. In the last 5-8 years, I've been doing leadership based on my PhD research, aligning First Nations ancient knowledge systems with a theory of sacred leadership, higher consciousness thinking. So I come to these summits 3 times a year to do the pre-workshop for the summit for the Leadership Institute, and I love doing it. It's great work.
Deadly. Well, I just want to big shout out to the Leadership Institute. Dana and Sam have been very kind to let us set up here and to also have access to a lot of the deadly, not just the speakers, but the mob that come here from all different parts of the country, from different organisations, different communities. So we get to build these relationships and make these new connections. So that's pretty deadly. In terms of your involvement with the Leadership Institute, and I love this sacred leadership. Can you share a little bit about what you do in these pre-workshops? Because we need more mob. More mob should come to these events and they then get the opportunity to participate in some of your work.
Yeah, well, Sam contacted me 4 odd years ago and he said he was looking for somebody who could do these leadership workshops the day prior to the summit, and he couldn't find anybody, and somebody had given him my name, and he looked me up on LinkedIn, and he said one of the things that did cross him was the combination of the two. And I said to him, I'd done a good 11 years of research about what First Nations human development systems look like, family development systems, social and emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, spiritual intelligence. And I worked as a senior transformational leadership consultant at this white firm, Sapphire, back in 2009, 10, before I went into academia and started to think, what would I do for a PhD? And it was the vision of some of the elders I'd been around at the time that made me think about, well, maybe I should write about what this means. And then we'd been using the work of a professor called Robert Keegan from Harvard, and he'd spent 40-odd years doing research around higher levels of consciousness and thinking, and came up with this idea that there's levels of thinking that make sacred leaders, and you can start off with egotistical leadership, with then socialised, independent, and then sacred, and that people can rise up these levels of leadership according to the way in which they develop their own emotional intelligence. And I aligned it with family systems theory, which I'd studied as a therapist. And if you're damaged in a family of origin where there's abuse, addiction or violence, your level of emotional intelligence and leadership will stay at what we call the egotistical level. It's all about me, because you're still dealing with your own childhood emotional stuff. So in the workshop, we do exercises around what are my disempowering beliefs? What have I learned from my development system that keeps me in the rut of thinking like this? And so to rise up the level of leadership, you have to develop a value system. You have to recover your own emotional intelligence. You have to have a spiritual life, and you have to you have to have boundaries, think about your own boundaries, be vulnerable, be independent in your own thinking, know that you can have your own thoughts differentiated from others. You don't have to follow others like a sheep. You can have your own thoughts and you can live with difference. And so I did some designs for Indigenous Business Australia. We did an emerging leadership program for 3 years with 15 of their middle managers. And so I put into practical application the study that I'd done for my PhD to prove that it was possible. And what happened was, after a year of that work, I discovered that some of those middle managers were having breakthrough in their emotional intelligence and rising with their level of thinking, and that by the end of those 2.5, 3 years, they had changed. Some of them left the organisation because they wanted to go elsewhere, and it had led them in different directions. Others stayed, but they got promoted. So it had quite an amazing effect. So now I know that what I studied and what I designed as workshops and as mentoring coaching work actually works. And it's the First Nations knowledge that really resonates with First Nations people, because it's something that's in us, and it's something that we do anyway. Despite colonisation, we still know how to care and share. We still know how to look after each other. We still know how to respect our elders and respect each other. And we know the difference between what's dysfunctional in the white world and what's functional based on our own value system. So I utilise that in the workshop I do, so that people can go, oh, yeah, my values are this, this and this. And I talk about the foundational laws of our culture that belong with every clan, because that was taught to me by these two Anangu elders I knew and wrote about in the PhD. And that binds everybody together. So no matter what your clan, there's always things we do together, like mutual reciprocity, sharing,
there's foundational knowledge.
There is. It belongs with everybody.
Yeah, Auntie Mary. Big shout out to beautiful Auntie Mary and Auntie Lilla, my elders as well. But they'd be my teachers.
Yeah.
And in a very professional, formal way, as well as an informal way, right? Because they're our aunties, but they're doctor and professors and aunties. Auntie Mary and Auntie Lila talk about this a lot, about there's all these different mobs across the country. We're all different peoples from different countries. We've got different languages, different laws, different dreaming stories, but there's foundational knowledge. And you
There
mentioned
is.
reciprocity.
Yes.
Yeah, the law of
Yes.
obligation, the law of reciprocity.
Responsibility, coming down to like sharing and caring, giving and receiving, knowing, I don't have to, if somebody lent me $50, I don't have to go and say, when you're giving me that back. They're going to give it in return somehow, whether it's by giving the $50 or by sharing something that's worth it. Mm-hmm. And that's a natural way of being in our culture. We're not greedy in that sense of, we're going to step on everybody to get where we want to go. We acknowledge and respect people that give us a lift up.
Yes. And it's fascinating to sit here and listen to someone talk about or unpack our culture at a higher level, because most people that I know, and it's no fault of our own, but we struggle to articulate our culture. And a lot of you mob that are listening to this yarn, I'm pretty sure you're nodding your head as well and agreeing with me that we're living our culture. We're not describing it to people. We've never had to describe our culture to anyone else for our whole existence. We've just lived it. So it's only been recent history, or more recently, that we're in a position now to describe our culture, because most people that are doing it have not done a good job. People are writing about us in academia that are non-Aboriginal people, and they're writing about our culture, our people, or where we come from. So a lot of the literature is actually incorrect. A lot of the...
It is incorrect.
Yes.
I read recently, I found something on the internet that these two people, non-Indigenous writers at one of the universities where I had worked, had written about a time when I was giving a talk about culture to all the academics at the university, and they had picked it apart and actually said, I'm a liar, I made this up. When actually I heard it from my elders, but I'd apparently made up this information because they couldn't prove that what I was saying was the truth. And I'm like, you've got to accept
the truth
that we
on
learn.
whose terms?
Exactly.
White terms or Aboriginal terms?
And you've got to accept that you learn things orally and nobody's written it in a book.
No. And
so they can't see it in a book. And they've written this article, and I wrote to the publisher and said, excuse me, you need to take that down.
Yeah.
This is oral history. I have to dispute what they're saying.
Yes, and we have every right to dispute it. But there's, for us as mob, for a lot of the mob that are listening, Annie Lilla has always said this to me, is that we operate on Aboriginal terms of reference, and non-Aboriginal people are operating, white terms of reference or Western terms of reference. And sometimes, as black fellas, we're getting drawn over into their terms of reference. And that's usually when we lose the argument. So we have to kind of consolidate what our terms of reference is, what our knowledge base. And Aunt Lilla said, when you can consolidate what Aboriginal terms of reference is, the ground beneath you is rock solid and you feel so confident and so strong. So for people that are coming to the Leadership Institute, especially where we are, the Indigenous Leadership Summit, they get to engage with your workshop and your knowledge, your PhD before the workshop, and that sets them up for the next 2 days. I think that's really deadly to start off a summit.
And it's lived experience,
Yeah.
It's not just that I studied something, it's that I started being a managing leader at the age of 30. So it was lived experience in an organisation from then on, and now 30-odd years later I can actually say, yeah, it was hard being in this two culture system, but I actually relied on my First Nations knowledge to enable me to navigate that, and you can do that too.
I love it. And this is what we need more of, bringing our own knowledge in these conversations. It's a leadership summit, and we're embedding Aboriginal knowledge or Indigenous knowledge within what we do and how we want to try and support other mob. I see a lot of younger mob here.
Yeah, there is this
which
time.
Is pretty deadly.
It's pretty nice.
And you was also talking about a new little venture that you're working on for younger people.
Yeah, so
around leadership.
Yeah, I have two other friends. One who's an elder of the Naarm people from Brewarrina, and another one from Sydney, Darug Mob and Gilmileroy. And they, as elder women, wanted to do something about how do we show young First Nations women how to just go for it. We do women's business retreats as part of our sort of healing recovery work. We do them, for people around the place, and doing it for a long time. And they're like, how do we mentor and help these ones, whether they're women in business in their middle part of their business, or whether they're young ones who want to break out and do something amazing, or whether they're working in a bureaucracy or they want to start their own swim line or whatever. We want to encourage them and mentor them with our lived experience, our background, our knowledge, but that real First Nations way of sitting and just listening deeply and allowing people to come up with their ideas and their inspirations and encouraging them to move forward and being like a holding the hands underneath them so that they know that they can have that strength to just go for it.
I love that. And a lot of our young people want to, take that next step, or they want to go and get that deadly job. And some of them don't have the confidence or the self-esteem. And that's where we need to, as older women and the elder women, be there and support them and guide them.
Yeah. So we started a First Nations women's leadership company, which we're just starting to get all, branded and so on.
And the website, you're working on the website?
We're working on the website now.
Yep.
Got it done, just got to get it put up.
Yep.
And, I know that, we're in our 60s, 50s, so we're the first sort of mob of people after those initial ones, like Lowitja, Donahue and so on. We've come up next. And then we've got all these young ones, like I think about my 42-year-old daughter. They had to get that confidence to keep going. They might have the degree, but what about working in this world where they're treated differently and often discriminated against? So, we say step out, step up. You don't have to be in a system that does that to you, or you can challenge that and speak to it, speak up to it and at it. So that's what we want to do. We'd like to coach and mentor them to just move the way you want to move.
And for any of our deadly young mob that are listening to this podcast, what would be some, words of wisdom, some advice that you would share with them if they are working in an organisation, could be in community, could be in government, and then they're just not, they're not happy, they're not satisfied.
Yeah.
What would you say in terms of some encouragement to keep going?
Look, it's really good to do some inner work on what are the things that you value, what are the things you know about yourself that are great, and where do you really want to go? Like, where are you happy? Where would you be happy? I want to work 3 days a week. I want to work at something. I want to create something. I want to run something, whatever. Do what's great for you. And sit out and think about those things that disempower the belief systems you've been told in the system. You're not good enough, or all of those belief systems that hang and pull you back. Get rid of them and transfer them, reframe them into empowering beliefs, that I can do it, I will do it, and go and do it. Because I had to do that for myself. I had to sit down and do that reframe of all those things, all those people in the past that said, you can't do that, you won't do that. I'm like, no, actually, I'm going to do that. You don't have to keep me down like that. So we live in a system that tends to do that to us.
Yeah.
So, go for it. Sit down and write down what's magic for you. Do a vision board, and create that vision board and then run with it.
And I've literally taken on so much just for myself. I'm not one to do a vision board, but my 8-year-old, Tiger Lily always, she's like, Mum, we should go and do this, we should go and do that. And I'm thinking even for a young 8-year-old who's growing up in a neighbourhood where majority of her friends are non-Aboriginal people, she very rarely sees a person of colour and sometimes feels that she's not, it's not that she's not worthy, but I know that she sometimes questions, like, why am I the way I am, or why do I have dark curly hair? Why do I have darker skin? So these belief systems and these patterns already, as an 8-year-old, she's already letting me know, hey, Mum, why is this happening? So the vision board, we were talking about doing some arts and craft, and I said to her, well, why don't we get this, we'll go to Officeworks and we'll go and get a few different magazines. And I wanted her to start thinking about what makes you happy.
Yeah.
She loves tennis. She wants to be the next Ash Barty.
There you go.
And, Ash Barty's fair skin, so I keep telling her she's still a Murray girl. So we've been talking a lot about identity lately.
Good.
And I think it's so important that we have strong Black women at these summits that other Black women can engage with and learn from with all of your experience.
Wonderful. I went into my granddaughter's room the other day. She just turned 7 and she's got a little vision board sitting up on the glass window, and it's one about, what do I do when I feel sad? And then she's got all these things with pictures and drawings that she's done. And actually every day she sits down, she says, Nana, this is what I want to do when I grow up. And she has not wavered from that thing. She has a vision of what she loves and what she wants to do, and she hasn't wavered from it yet. And I think, okay, you might have 10 more where you want to do something else, but whatever it is, we are here to help you. We're here to hold you and help you get where you got to go.
Yeah. But just the fact that these little people are already telling us, the signs are there, help me understand, let me navigate this white fella world, black fella world. How do I walk in two worlds?
Yeah.
And how do I embrace my blackness? So I said and here I am wearing this Deadly Mums Club. I bought this T-shirt.
Willa's got some of those.
I bought this T-shirt and I went home with it, and she said, where's my T-shirt? I said, we've got to get a Deadly Daughters Club going T-shirt.
We've always got sets of those. We've got one that's Aboriginal girl.
Yes.
Deadly Aboriginal girl across the front.
Black, and there's one Aboriginal Magic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Black Girl Magic.
Black Girl Magic. So many great ones. Rika's always buying little sets for them.
Yes.
To wear, especially in the NAIDOC week and Rika, Willa's very strong at school. She'll go in there and she talks about her identity. She shares it. And the teacher, wrote to me the other day and said, where does Willa's cultural identity line come from? And I explained it to her, because they didn't know.
Yeah.
But she's very strong about it. They'll say, God made the earth and the stars, and she'll say, no, you're wrong. Bayami did that.
Yep, because she's hearing our stories at home.
Yeah, she's talking about her stuff.
Her culture. And it's been so deadly.
Thank you so much.
I get to yarn with you and, finally get an opportunity to let people know what you've been doing, what you're working on. And can't wait to see you more out there doing what you do.
Thank you so much.
And more of our young women coming through the ranks and being able to kind of step up and take care of business and not be afraid.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to have the generational thread with us. I sit here and I think of Auntie Maureen and Tiger, and it's all in that story as we talk. It's very beautiful. Thank you for your time.
Oh, I love you, Aunt.
Love you.
Thank you. And I know you would have enjoyed this deadly yarn. In the show notes, you'll see what Aunt's been working on. And for the young, deadly Black women that are listening, just remember, where you come from and who you are. That's what my mum always said. Don't ever be ashamed about who you are and where you come from. And don't forget your family when you make it. Don't forget your mob. On that note, I hope you've enjoyed this yarn. Until next time, bye for now. If you'd like any more info on today's guest, please visit our show notes in the episode description. A big shout out to all you Deadly Mob and allies who continue to listen, watch and support our podcast. Your feedback means the world. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify, or even head to our socials and YouTube channel and drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. The Black Magic Woman podcast is produced by Clint Curtis.